The Crown 2 and the TFV8 are two of the most hyped tanks of 2016, and today we're going to find out which one is the best one for you. How's it going, everybody? This is Andy with Aspen Valley Vapes, and today we're going to be comparing the SMOK TFV8 and the Uwell Crown 2. This video is going to be a little bit different than my standard review videos, so let me know down in the comments if you did enjoy this video, and if you'd like to see some more of this style video where I compared two similar devices. I did do it before with the Artery Suma, the knee box, the Play-Doh, and the Joytech e-grip too. I compared all four of those all-in-one devices. But if you guys like this style of video and you want to see some more, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be happy to do some comparisons on similar products like the Crown 2 and the TFV8. Most of this video is going to take place in the close-up view, comparing the TFV8 and the Crown 2 and look at the different specs, comparing some of the features of both and seeing which one would be the best one for you. After we finish that close-up though, we will bring it back up top and I will talk about which one I prefer the most out of the two and some cons I have had with these. If you guys want to see a more in-depth review on either of these two tanks, there will be a link in the description to the Crown 2 review and to the SMOK TF8 review, where I do vape on these guys and I go through a lot more in-depth on each individual one by themselves. But this one's just going to compare the two, take a look at the features, and see which one is right for you. That being said though, let's dive in and take a close-up look at these two tanks. Alright, here we have the Crown 2 on the right and the SMOK TF8 on the left. Alright, let's start out with the size of these guys. The Crown 2 is 24mm by 66.5mm, and that is to the top of the included drip tip. The weight on the Crown 2 is 66 grams. The size on the TFV8 is 24.5mm by 50mm, and that's got to be without the drip tip included because you put them side by side. And you can see they are almost identical in height, so they're not including the drip tip height on there. And the weight on the TFV8 is 74 grams, so it is a little bit heavier on the TFV8. The base is 24.5mm on the TFV8, but the glass is 25.5. So the glass does protrude a little bit more than the actual base, and that's to accommodate some more e-liquid in there. We're going to touch on this later though, but as you can see firsthand, we are experiencing some leaking on the Crown 2. You can see that e-liquid coming out through the airflow slots down there. Yep. I did touch on that in the Crown 2 review, but I said it was fixed. Well, you can see here it did come back. So we are going to touch on that later, but you can see firsthand I am experiencing some leaking on the Crown 2. Alright, now onto the capacity of these two tanks. The capacity on the Uwell Crown 2 is 4 mils, and the capacity on the TFV8 is 6 mils. When you have the T8 coil installed on the TFV8, like I do now in there, the capacity is 5.5 mils. So it does bring it down 0.5 milliliters due to the large size of this T8 coil, but it still has 1.5 milliliters more than the Crown 2, even with that coil installed. So if e-liquid capacity is a big thing of yours, the TFV8 is going to take the cake right away. Now onto the coil heads for each of these tanks. On the right you can see the Crown 2 coil heads. All of them are the same style, but they are different ratings. And then on the left you can see the TFV8 coil. Each of the TFV8 coils are a bit different in terms of the actual size and the way the coil wicks. This one right here is the 0.15 ohm coil, and the T8 coil is even bigger than this one right here. And the T8 coil has a lot larger e-liquid intake holes than this 0.15 ohm T6 coil. But on the Crown 2, all of the coil heads are that same size. In terms of different coil options, on the Crown 2 you have a 0.25 ohm stainless steel coil, a 0.5 ohm stainless steel coil, and a 0.8 ohm parallel Kanthal coil. We know SMOK is most likely going to release a bunch more down the line, but they do have 3 to start out with, and that is the 0.15 ohm octuple coil, which you see right here, the 0.2 ohm sextuple coil, and the 0.15 ohm quad coil. Now the comparison on the RBA section is pretty easy because there is none for the Crown 2. You can use the Rafale VRBA in there, but there is not one specifically designed for the Crown 2, while the TFV8 does come with an included RBA base. The RBA coil for the TFV8 is got an 18mm deck, and it comes with pre-wrapped dual fused Clapton coils already installed on there. All you gotta do is wick them up and make sure they are heating correctly, and you're ready to start vaping on this RBA. In terms of the pre-built coil heads, right now I've got 1.5 weeks out of both of them, and neither of them are starting to show any wear, so that is a good sign. I will update that once these coils start to burn out, but right now I'm going on 1.5 weeks strong on both of these tanks. Now onto the top filling of these tanks. On the Crown 2, you unscrew the top piece. You can see these 2 large e-liquid fill holes, which are very easy to access, and they do allow for easy filling of your tank. You screw that top piece back on and you are set on the Crown 2. On the TFV8 it is a swing open latch system, so you push down and swing it open and you have 1 e-liquid fill hole right there. Obviously you have a little bit more room on the Crown 2 than the TFV8, but you also don't have to unscrew this. And then to close it, just push back in, push down, and it's filled. It does not slide open at all like some people were having problems with on the TFV4. So that is going to be up to you to decide which style you like more. I personally like that TFV8 swing open latch style more than the Crown 2, but to each their own. Alright, now let's look at the airflow. Let's start off with the TFV8. Here you can see the massive airflow intakes on the TFV8. There's no locking mechanism, but you just twist, and what you do on one side is going to be replicated on that other side there. The airflow on the TFV8 is much airier than the airflow on the Crown 2, so if you like that little bit of a tighter draw, check out the Crown 2. The airflow is quite a bit smaller, as you can see, compared to the TFV8. The airflow on the Crown 2 works the exact same though as the TFV8. What you do on one side will be replicated on the other, but it's got a clicking mechanism. So you twist once, boom, that's a setting. One more, clicked into place, 2, 3, 4, all the way closed, and that feels very nice and smooth. It feels a lot smoother than the TFV8, and I like the actual clickiness on this more than the TFV8's just simple slide method. Alright, now let's talk about the actual construction and looks of the tanks. Crown 2 is constructed a lot better, and it feels like a lot more high quality tank than the TFV8, and it might just be that matte finish. I don't know what it is about the Crown 2, but it just feels like it's a lot higher construction. The threading is beautiful. Threading isn't bad on the TFV8, but it is a little bit better on the Crown 2. And that clickiness of the airflow, the overall construction of the Crown 2 feels fantastic. The TFV8 itself is a little more shiny and flashy. It's got those like orangish O-rings in there, you can see. It makes it stand out a little bit more. And then the Crown 2's got a little bit more of a refined look. So that's all gonna come down to personal preference. I do like the look of the Crown 2 more, and I like the overall finish of it, but that is 100% a personal preference thing, and that's gonna depend on the person. And the TFV8 is constructed pretty well, but it's not saying it's like a knockoff tank or anything like that. It is constructed well, but the Crown 2 definitely does have a better overall construction. In my opinion, the quality feels just a little bit better than the TFV8. Alright, right now let's bring this back up top and touch on a few more points about these two tanks here. Alright, so now for my overall thoughts. For me personally, the TFV8 is the winner. It comes with 3 pre-built coil heads, and it also comes with an RBA base, and it's priced about $5 more than the Crown 2. So you definitely get more bang for your buck with the TFV8 compared to the Crown 2. And the Crown 2 does not have an RBA base right now. You can use the Rafale VRBA, but there is not one specifically made for the Crown 2, and it doesn't come with it like it does on the TFV8. I'm sure one will be released for the Crown 2 a little bit down the road, but as of right now there's not, and that's another additional charge. So it's going to bring the total cost of the Crown 2 above the cost of the TFV8, with purchasing that RBA coil if that's something you're looking at. On top of that, the TFV4 had over 20 different coil options, so you know SMOK is going to continue to support this tank for a while, and they're going to release a bunch of different coil options. Yeah, it launched with 3, but in a couple months from now, there will probably be around 15 to 20 different coil options, including all the new temperature control coils, all the new builds, all that good stuff. SMOK continues to support their tanks for a while after their release. For the Crown 2, we can't speak on that yet. We don't know if Uwell is going to release future coil options down the road. We're going to have to wait and see, but for SMOK, it is pretty safe to say they will be offering different coils down the road on the TFV8. Also leaking. I have had leaking issues on the Crown 2. I covered that in the Crown 2 video review, and I said that it had been fixed, but the leaking issues are back. I am having some leaking problems with the Crown 2. I have had no leaking problems whatsoever with the TFV8, so that is something you need to keep in mind. I've talked to a lot of other people that have been using the Crown 2, and they have not had any leaking issues, so I may have just got a lemon, but that is something I do want to note, and I have had continual leaking problems on the Crown 2. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to check out the individual reviews for both of these tanks, there will be a link down in the description to each of those videos, the Crown 2 review and the SMOK TFV8 review. But other than that, that is going to wrap up this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and vape on.